morning, Ms. Wenzel. Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Chair.
And before I forget, you will need to talk to me during the break about this list.
Yes.
Okay. It might be necessary that we stop early today. I hope it won't be necessary. I'm just going to continue to monitor my situation. I'm not so well, but I'm much better than yesterday.
I'm sorry to see you. I'm sorry, Chair.
Yeah, no, that's fine. As I feel now, I think we should be able to go quite some distance. So I'll just monitor my situation. Good morning, Colonel Naidoo.
Good morning, Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Wenzel, are you ready for us to continue?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I think where we were when we adjourned on Friday was where Colonel Naidoo had begun or had just said that there was a suggestion from somebody at the braai in General Lazarus' house that they should go somewhere. I think that's where we are. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Take it from there. Maybe a recap in terms of who had made that suggestion.
Yes, and Chair, if I might just go one step back also, just to clarify something.
Yes, that's fine, yes.
Colonel Naidoo, on Friday afternoon, you testified what transpired on the evening of the 20th of October 2011 at General Lazarus's house. And you said after there had been a discussion with regard to the destruction of evidence for travel records, pertaining to travel records, you said that Colonel FM09 asked General Lazarus if he should spin a story. What did you understand by that?
Sorry, Ms. Wenzel. There seems to be a problem with the sound. Could you just give me a moment or so?
Okay.
Chair, if I may, before I go further, with regards to my testimony on Friday, there's just one incident that I need to clarify or bring to your attention.
Yes.
When I spoke of admitting to the Hawks regarding putting in false claims, I confided in two of my colleagues, namely Colonel Barnard and FM 40. Chair, when I'm going back now to the meeting at General Lazarus's house, when FM 10 said that his contact at the Hawks told him that I admitted to putting in false claims, and I'm now on the side of the Hawks. Chair, at that stage, outside of myself and the two Hawks investigators, there were only two other individuals who knew of my admissions to the Hawks. So it was not possible for anyone else to know about this at that stage. And the only other person that I believe spoke to FM 10 was FM 40, Chair.
Yes.
So it couldn't be anyone from the Hawks. It was not possible.
Yes.
So I just wanted to clarify that.
Well, the four people who knew about the admission you had made to the Hawks were Colonel Barnard, and the person that was with Colonel Barnard when you told them. And then it was the two members of the Hawks, is that right?
That's indeed correct, Chair.
So those are the four people who knew about it?
Outside of myself, yes.
Outside of yourself?
Yes.
Okay, so you say that it could not have been any of the two from the Hawks who would have spoken to anybody in crime intelligence about your admissions?
Chair, it wouldn't make sense for them to do that. They were the investigators, and I was liaising with them with regards to information. I don't think they would have approached any of the suspects and gave them that information, so it doesn't make sense.
Unless, of course, they didn't themselves directly speak to somebody in crime intelligence to tell them that, but they shared the information of your admission with one or more other people within the Hawks whom they trusted, who might have broken that trust.
That could have happened, Chair, but like I mentioned from my side, there was only those four individuals that I knew of at that stage who knew of this information.
Yes. And in terms of Colonel Barnard and the person who was with Colonel Barnard, are you in a position to indicate your level of trust, whether any one of them may have told General Lazarus or somebody else within crime intelligence about it?
Chair, by that evening, Colonel Barnard had already informed General Lazarus regarding my admissions, because that's what General Lazarus told me.
Yes.
So it only leaves the other individual, which is FM40, that probably spoke to FM10.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. Before we proceed, I just want to remind you, Colonel Naidoo, that the oath that you took on Friday continues to apply until you have finished your evidence. Is that all right?
Yes, Chair. Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Venzel?
Colonel Naidoo, could you now deal with how you understood the statement from Colonel FM09 to General Lazarus that whether he should spin a story? What did you understand by that?
Chair, I have knowledge of when he said that spin a story, what I believed that meant to be was using journalists either to plant information within the media that would be in favor of crime intelligence.
So is that a term that you knew to be used quite often within crime intelligence to mean that a story must be told to journalists who would then be expected to publish such story?
Not generally, Chair, but at that stage, that's what I understood it to be, because I have knowledge of other incidents where journalists were either paid or were in touch with crime intelligence members.
Yes. So is the position that your understanding of what spinning a story was intended to mean simply based on your understanding of the term and not because of how you understood the term to be used in crime intelligence generally?
Yes, Chair. Chair,
Okay.
As a standalone statement, it might not mean much right now, but as I continue with with my testimony,
Yes.
it might give more insight or more understanding of what that statement meant at that particular time.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Colonel Naidoo, what did you do after you left General Lazarus's house that evening?
Like I testified to previously,
Well, maybe he must first just refresh our memory in terms of who made the suggestion that they go somewhere.
yes, Chair, it was FM09 suggested that we go for drinks. He said he was extremely stressed. Chair, I was also stressed, but I was also wary. This might just be another opportunity for me to be interrogated or debriefed. But having said that, I also didn't want to create any suspicion as well. So excuse me. So I agreed to go.
Okay. Did you say where you should, where the drinks would be, where you would go to have drinks?
I'll get to that in a moment, Chair.
Yes, okay.
So as we left General Lazarus's house, like I just said, there was a suggestion we go for drinks, which I agreed to. We went to, and I'm speaking now, this is myself. It's FM09 and FM08. We proceeded to the Holiday, I think it's the Holiday Inn, it's in the precinct of OR Tambo International Airport. The one that's along the R24, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
It's a pub in the hotel, Chair. I can't remember the name. I think it's a keg. We got in and we proceeded to get some drinks, Chair.
You mentioned who was with you, and I just want to check, was it 3 people, including you?
Yes, Chair, it was FM08,
And then FM09 and yourself?
and that's indeed, Chair.
Okay, all right, yes. Continue. You got to the pub.
Yes. Chair, while we were waiting for our drinks, FM09 showed me a message on his phone. It was a BBM message. Chair, I took a glance at it. I can't say for sure. Well, I didn't see what was actually on the message because the lighting wasn't too good. But after he glanced the phone towards me, obviously I couldn't read what was on the phone. He said that we, and what I understood this to be as in crime intelligence, or I, as an individual, should stay away from General Damat and General Sevilla. Chair,
Yes.
at that stage...
That was FM09.
FM09.
09,
FM09.
okay.
Yes, Chair. I sort of discarded what he told me because it didn't make sense, because I knew who General Damat and General Sevilla was. At that stage, just for the record, General Damat was the head of the Hawks, national head of the Hawks, and General Sevilla was the head of the Hawks Scouting Province.
Yes, General Damat was national head of the Hawks.
That's correct.
Yes.
At that stage, I have not met any one of these individuals, except from knowing who they were and what positions they held. So I sort of discarded what he told me because I've never met these individuals.
You didn't understand what the context was for him to say you should stay away from these 2 individuals?
Not at all, Chair. And we continued. We had, I think I had 2 drinks. I'm not sure how many drinks FM09 had. We were probably there an hour or so, Chair. But it was quite it was an amicable situation. There was no more questions put to me by FM09, no FM08.
08. And what was your response to this suggestion? Did you just hear it and not react to it?
I didn't, Chair, because, like I'm saying, it didn't make sense to me because I hadn't met any of these individuals. So I just sort of discarded what he told me, or rather didn't pay much attention to it at that stage.
Yes.
We were probably there about an hour or so, and I think we called it a night. We decided to go home. FM 09 and FM 08 dropped me off at my home. The next morning, Chair, which is now the 21st of October 2011, Chair, just would like to mention as well, at that stage I was making use of 4 or 5 cell phones that I had with me at the time. One was my official phone, Farm Crime Intelligence. The other 3 or 4 that I had were pay-as-you-go cell phones.
Yes.
By that stage, I had disconnected my home phone as well. The cell phones that I was making use of at the time, I took off the batteries, I took off the SIM cards, simply because of all the incidents that had transpired in the previous few hours or the day before. The one cell phone, which was a pay-as-you-go phone, nobody had the number. None of my colleagues had that number.
Yes.
I didn't even know the number myself.
Yes.
I eventually made contact with Colonel Rohl, sir. Chair, he'd given me his cell phone number on my first meeting in September, or the second meeting I referred to, the 18th and the 19th. On one of those 2 occasions, he had given me his cell phone number. He said I should keep it in case I need to contact him for anything. And I remember that I indeed had his number. So I contacted Colonel Rohl, sir, using this.
This is now still the 20th, or is it the 21st?
This is the morning of the 21st, Chair.
Morning of the 21st October 2011.
That's correct.
Okay.
I contacted Colonel Rohl, sir. I'm not sure whether I phoned him or sent him a message from this phone. I told him that I need to see him urgently. I can't remember. I think he said he will come to meet with me, and I told him to meet with me at my house. I explained more or less where it was. Chair, at that stage I was driving a Paki, a state vehicle, so I decided to wait outside on the roadside in the Paki waiting for Colonel Rohl, sir. I'm not sure where he was and how long it was going to take to get to meet with me. So I was waiting for him on the roadside, sitting in the Paki. While I was waiting for Colonel Rohl, sir, I noticed a blue Audi approaching my house. Like I mentioned earlier, Chair, there's a field across my house, so I have a view of both the roads leading to my house, so it's quite a fair view of what's going on around me.
Your Paki, was it parked not far from the gate to your house, or was it parked quite some distance away from your house?
Chair, it was parked near the gate, but on the road, not in front of the gate in the driveway. It was parked on the road.
Yes.
I did this purely so I could have a fair view of what's happening in front of me and the side of me and the back of me, just to see vehicles approaching or anything like that.
Around about what time of the morning was it when you were waiting there for Colonel Rohl, sir?
Chair, it would have been probably around 9 or 10. I must add as well that I didn't go to work that morning or that day, which is the 21st.
And
I didn't report to work that day, Chair.
Okay, I know that you mentioned, I think, that either the 18th or 19th was a Friday. Am I correct? One of those two? Or did I misunderstand? You can't remember?
No, Chair. The 20th, when I picked up General Lazarus and I dropped him off at his office, and that's when I told him I want to go home to rest. That was the 20th.
And you can't remember what day of the week it was? the 20th?
The 20th was a Thursday, Chair.
It was a Thursday.
Yes, I remember because the 21st of October very clearly because it was a Friday. That's the day we were admitted into the witness protection program.
Oh, okay. Okay. So while you were waiting either in the bakkie or outside the bakkie on the road, you said you saw some vehicle.
Chair, I was seated in the bakkie, but the bakkie was parked on the roadside, and I noticed this vehicle approaching my house. It was a blue Audi. As it got near, I noticed it was FM 10. He parked alongside me. He didn't get off, neither did I get off of my vehicle. We were speaking through the windows of each vehicle.
Was he alone?
He was alone, Chair.
Okay.
He told me that he was instructed by General Lazarus to pick me up and take me to his office for a meeting. This is to General Lazarus's office.
What time were you supposed to have started work that day?
Chair, we normally start at 7:30, but like I said, on that Friday, I didn't report to work.
Yes, okay, all right.
Chair, this was probably around 9 or 10 in the morning. I could be wrong, but it was definitely before 12.
Yes, okay.
I actually got quite a shock when I saw him first approaching because I was actually waiting for Colonel Rohl, sir, to come and meet with me. So this put me in quite a dilemma because if Colonel Rohl, sir, showed up at the time that he was there, then I would have had a problem.
Yes.
So I tried to get out of it, Chair. I gave him some excuse. I think I told him that I needed to take my wife to the doctor or I needed to take her somewhere.
Yes.
He didn't back down. He insisted that I come. I could see that he was not going to let go, so I eventually decided that I will go. But I told him this is now FM 10. I told him I will follow him in my vehicle because he wanted me to come with him in his car.
Yes. I wonder why you would have wanted that. Do you have any idea? You had your own official car with you?
At that stage, yes, Chair. It wasn't my own official car. The car that I was driving at that stage was in the garage. I was using, this was one of the pool cars of General Lazarus that I was using at the time, while my own car was in the garage.
Okay, yes.
Eventually, I wasn't going to go with him.
I'm sorry, I think you said that you know why, or you knew why he wanted you to rather go with him in the car that he was driving rather than follow in your own car?
Chair, I can't say for sure why he insisted that I come with him, but eventually I said I didn't see
follow him.
That's correct, Chair.
Yes, okay.
General Lazarus's office is in Centurion. I won't mention where because it's a covered premises.
Yes.
When we got to the office, obviously FM 10 was there already. He had parked his car. I parked the vehicle that I was driving in the basement of the office. As I walked up to the reception of General Lazarus's office, I noticed Colonel Barnard was present, speaking to another Colonel Furstenberg. FM, obviously.
What's the name of the other colonel?
Colonel Furstenberg.
Oh, how do you write that?
I think it's.
I'm looking in your statement.
It's Fursten on page 065, Chair, on 282.
Okay.
Jay, you'll see it at the bottom of that page.
At the bottom of the page?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Furstenberg. Furstenberg.
That's
yes,
correct.
Continue.
Like I mentioned, Colonel Barnard was there. FM 09, This is Colonel FM09
Yes.
and FM07 was also present.
Yes.
Chair, when I got to the basement and noticed all these individuals, like I've just mentioned, present, I realized that this was going to be another interrogation session. I asked FM40 FM40. I asked FM40 what's going on. He said he doesn't know. He was instructed to come to the office to have for a meeting. Mm-hmm. And at that stage, if I remember correctly, I think I said to FM40, "Can't Barry shut his mouth?"
Was that a reference to Colonel Barnard?
That's correct, Chair.
Yes, okay.
This I mentioned to FM40.
Yes.
Chair, if I remember correctly, General Lazarus at that stage was not at his office. He was gone for a meeting. I think he had a meeting with the Inspector General of Intelligence. This I picked up from the conversation that I had with either FM40 or FM7.
Yes.
Chair, at that stage, I realized that I had to get out of the situation because once General Lazarus comes back, then it's going to be a real problem for me. Chair, at that stage, like I said, I realized that I needed to get out of that situation. I deliberately became emotional. When I say that, I said to FM40 and FM07 that I had been interviewed by the Hawks and now by my own colleagues, and I intentionally became emotional. At that stage, if I remember correctly, I used some vulgar language as well.
Did you say that you did this deliberately as part of your plan to get out of the situation?
Chair, it was part deliberate. It was part genuine because
Yes.
I was genuinely emotional. The last few days was quite stressful for me.
Yes.
And it was, like I said, it was genuine, but also deliberate. And I started to walk back to my bakkie, which was parked in the basement.
Yes. So that was before you could even enter the room where the meeting was supposed to take place?
Chair, this was all happening on the outside of the building. Everybody was standing on the outside of General Lazarus' building. It wasn't on the inside.
Oh, and General Lazarus had not arrived yet?
Not yet, Chair.
Okay.
So I proceeded to walk back to my bakkie. FM07 followed me and said that, I should hold on because they just want to clear up or clarify the whole situation. I didn't listen to him. I walked through the basement door, and as I walked past the door, I kicked the door. I jumped into my vehicle, and I started to drive at high speed back to my house, which was in Kempton Park. So it's probably a half an hour drive from where I was.
Yes.
Chair, I got home.
Did anybody try to follow you?
I'll get to that now, Chair.
Yes.
From the office itself, no. I can't recall anybody following me.
Yes. Okay.
But when I got home, Chair, which was about half an hour, 40 minutes later, a few minutes after I got home, I heard a vehicle coming down the road near to my house at high speed. I asked my wife to check because when that vehicle eventually stopped in front of my driveway, and the intercom buzzed. My wife answered. It was FM09. He wanted to know where I was. My wife told him that I came back very upset and I was asleep. And he eventually left. Chair, by this stage, I was really concerned, not only of my own safety, but that of my family as well.
And what did you then
Can
do?
I just have a few minutes, Chair? Sorry.
Yes, okay, all right. You must just tell me if you need us to take a short adjournment of 5 minutes or so, if you need to just get yourself in a position where you are able to continue to give evidence.
Chair, I'm fine. I can continue.
Okay, all right, yes.
After FM 09 left, I immediately contacted Colonel Rohl, sir. And so happened, he didn't turn up for our initial meeting because I later found out from him, he was delayed and he couldn't make that meeting where I was waiting for him outside in the bakkie. But this I found out later. But after FM 09 left, I immediately contacted Colonel Rohl, sir, and I told him that I need to meet him very, very urgently. We made arrangements, Chair, to meet at a Roman's Pizza. This was in Edenvale, in Van Riebeek Street, or Van Riebeek Road, if I remember correctly. This was about 5 or 7 kilometers from my house.
And this was around about what time?
This was still probably...
Before 12?
Before 12.
Yes.
Probably before 12, Chair, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Chair, then I was faced with another dilemma to getting to this meeting, because at that stage, the bakkie that I came back with was, the way my house is situated, the bakkie is clearly visible from the road, and my wife's car was parked next to the bakkie. So I was just afraid if I use my own vehicle, which is the bakkie, the state vehicle, that somebody might be surveilling my house, and I couldn't use the bakkie. And I couldn't phone anybody, because at that stage, all of my friends were my actual colleagues from crime intelligence, so I couldn't phone anybody for help. At that stage, my wife was fully aware, Chair, of what was going on. I'm referring now to my meeting with the Hawks, the initial meeting, the second meeting of the 18th and the 19th, and what transpired the night before.
Yes.
And what happened the morning of the 21st. And I explained to her that I needed to get to this meeting to meet Colonel Rohl, sir, and my situation. I'm not sure if I suggested to her to take me there, or she offered to take me there.
Yes.
Chair, what happened next was, like I said, my wife's vehicle was parked next to the bakkie. The one side of the vehicle, I'm referring to my wife's car, was partially visible on one side from the roadside. On the other side was the left-hand side of the vehicle was not visible from the roadside. So I told my wife that we needed to before I got into the vehicle, I explained to her where we needed to go to, so she had an idea of where we're going to go. Chair, if I had walked out normally to the car, there was still a chance that somebody might see me.
Yes.
So I crawled on the paving, Chair.
You crawled?
I crawled on the paving so that I wasn't visible to the road if anybody
Yes.
was watching.
Yeah.
I crawled on the paving towards the side of the vehicle, which was not visible from the roadside.
Mm.
I opened the left side the back passenger door. I crawled into the car, Chair, and I hid myself behind the front two seats.
Yes.
Just so that nobody could see me. Chair, while all of this was happening, my wife was, she was watching through the kitchen window, and once I was in the vehicle, she came into the car.
Yes.
Chair, I told my wife, whatever she does, don't ever look back and speak to me. She must just look in the rearview mirror.
Please just repeat that.
I told my wife that if she wants to speak to me when she jumped into the car, don't ever look back. She mustn't turn her head back.
Oh, okay.
She must just look into her rearview mirror. So
Yeah.
She jumped into the car, and I told her to reverse, and she must be careful, check the surrounding areas if there's any vehicles parked around. She did this, and it was clear, so I told her to continue. I explained to her more or less where we need to get to. Chair, it was, like I said, it was about 5 or 7 kilometers. As we were continuing, getting to this point where we needed to be, I told her to continue checking the rearview mirrors if anybody was following us. I told her to look out for the vehicles, which vehicles to look out for, specific ones. My colleagues at that stage, I knew what vehicles they were driving, so I told her to look out for these vehicles. She continued check. We eventually got to where I needed to be to meet Colonel Rohl, sir. But all the while on this journey to get to where we needed to be at, I was continuously speaking to her, just checking to see if she was okay. Chair, I must also say at this point, my wife is a civilian. This was quite extreme for her to do something like this. So I was quite concerned for her as well, for her safety. But like I said, I had no other choice. That was the only person I could have trusted at that stage.
Yes.
So I continuously was speaking to her, conversing with her, telling her to check her mirrors, any cars that were following. As we got closer to the point where I needed to meet Colonel Rohl, sir, I again told her to check one last time if she sees any suspicious vehicles. She told me that she couldn't see any vehicles. At that stage where I needed to be, the robot was actually red, and I quickly jumped off. I told her to go, before I jumped off, Chair, I told my wife to go straight home and wait for my call. Chair, when I jumped out of the vehicle, I ran into a bookshop across the Roman's Pizza where I was going to meet Colonel Rohl, sir. This was merely to, jumping the gun a bit. I ran into the bookshop. I pretended to be buying a book, so I was looking at a book, but while I was doing that, I was just checking the area to see if anybody was following me. I waited in the bookshop for about probably 5 minutes, also not to arouse any suspicion from the shop owner, so I couldn't be there too long. When I felt that it was all clear, I proceeded to the Roman's Pizza. I'm not sure who got there first, whether I was there first or Colonel Rohl was already there, but what I can say is that I met with him. And I explained to him, Chair, exactly all of the events from the night of, or the previous night and the morning of the 20th, pardon me, Chair. 21st. Before, I could tell him all of these things, he asked me if I minded if Colonel Rohl joined us for the meeting. And I told him I didn't mind, so Colonel Rohl also joined us for that meeting.
By the way, was Colonel Rohl the one that was with Colonel Rohl, or when they interviewed you on the 18th and 19th?
Indeed, that's correct, Chair.
Okay, all right.
He joined us for the meeting, and I explained to both of them what exactly had transpired the night before and the morning of the 21st. Chair, at that stage, I'm not sure if he mentioned witness protection. By this stage, I must also add, when I got to this meeting, Chair, I was physically upset. I think my hands were shaking by the time I got to Colonel Rohl, sir.
Yes.
He could see that I wasn't in a good space. At that stage, Chair, I'm not sure if he mentioned witness protection, but after we probably lasted about half an hour, Chair, that meeting, he asked me if I could meet him in Pretoria in the evening. I think I told him I'm not sure, but I will try. Chair, I went back home, or rather, when the meeting was over, they left first, and I phoned my wife.
Before you proceed, you said you were not sure whether he mentioned the witness protection at that meeting.
That's correct, Chair.
Is that because although witness protection was discussed at some stage, you are not sure whether it was discussed at that meeting?
That evening, Chair, I was together with my family. We actually placed in the witness protection. But like I'm saying, I'm not sure if Colonel Rohl at that moment or in that meeting of the morning of the 21st mentioned witness protection to me.
Okay.
I can't be certain.
Okay. So you called your wife after Colonel Rohl and Feliun had left?
That's correct, Chair. After they left, I called my wife and I asked her to come fetch me. But I told her not to come to the same place where she dropped me off. I told her to park around the block of where she initially dropped me off. When she arrived, I did the same. As I came to the meeting, I jumped into the back of the car and hid myself behind the two seats, and we went straight home. Also, Chair, continuously speaking to my wife, telling her to check her whereabouts, see if any vehicles were following us. Chair, the period that after I got home is a bit hazy for me. I'm not sure. I was really not in a good space after I got home.
Yes.
I think I lay down for a while, probably had a nap for an hour or two. I can't remember. That's a bit hazy for me. But what I can recall, that afternoon of the 21st, Colonel Rohl contacted me and asked me if I could meet him at his offices. This is now the Hawks offices in Silverton. Chair, I think I told Colonel Rohl I will try my best to get to that meeting. Chair, we were also expecting some visitors that evening. So my wife couldn't drive me. So I decided to take a chance and drive myself there. I waited for it to get a bit dark for the sun to set. I put on a cap and I lay a bit low in the car and drove to Pretoria. Also, myself, keep checking if there was anybody that was following me while I was driving to Pretoria. When I got to the Hawks offices, Colonel Rohl was there. Also present was General Henkel. I think that Colonel Rohl had already briefed Colonel Henkel of my situation and the incidents that happened prior, in the day before, in the morning of the 21st. General Henkel said to me, from what he has heard so far, he genuinely sees that there is a threat on my life and that I should go into the witness protection program.
That was General Henkel?
That's correct, Chair.
Yes.
Arrangements were subsequently made for the task force. They escorted me from the Hawks offices back to my house in Kempton Park. Chair, but before I'm jumping the gun a bit, before we left, I phoned my wife and told her that she needs to politely get rid of the visitors that we had.
Yes.
And that she needs to pack a bag for each one of us, an overnight bag. And she needed to do that very, very quickly.
Yes.
Chair, I was escorted by the task team back to my house. I'm not sure at that stage, I can't recall who brought my wife's car back. I think it was one of the members of the task.
Had you used your wife's car to go to the Hawks offices?
That's correct, Chair.
Okay. Yes.
At that stage, it was probably one of the members of the task team that escorted, or rather drove my wife's car back to my house. But I, myself, was escorted by a team from the task team. I think it was 4 or 5 of them. When we got there, my wife was ready. She had already packed bags for each one of us. My wife's sister, who lives not far from us, Chair, like I testified to on Friday, this is the same residence that was broken into. She came to basically just had to hand over everything to my wife's sister, the keys of the house and some of our personal things. This also might be quite hazy for me. I can't remember all the detail, but in essence, this is what happened.
Yes.
We were taken back. This is my family, myself, my wife, and my 2 kids. We were escorted back to the Hawks offices in Silverton. This was probably around 9 o'clock in the evening, Chair. I can't remember exactly.
When you went back
We were
Hawks
escorted.
offices.
That's indeed correct, Chair. We were taken back to the Hawks offices. Our cell phones, all our communication was taken away from us. The only thing that I retained was a laptop. We were subsequently handed over to members of the witness protection, and I was temporarily transferred from crime intelligence into the witness protection program. That was the 21st of October 2011.
Yes.
That's as far as I can take it regarding this, Chair.
Yes.
Colonel Naidoo, what happened that Sunday, the 23rd of October 2011?
Chair, at this stage, my family and I were already placed into the witness protection program. I generally buy the newspaper on a Sunday, so I asked one of my protectors to get the newspaper for me. It was the Sunday Times. This is now the 23rd of October 2011, Chair.
Yes.
On the front page of the Sunday Times was an article regarding General Damat. It was something to do with renditions. I can't recall the exact content of the article.
Yes.
But that was basically what it was. It was regarding General Damat and renditions.
Yes.
And what did you think when you read that article?
Chair, all of these standalone incidents that I spoke of, as per my testimony previously, as spinning a story, and the incident that happened at the Holiday Inn when FM 09 told me to stay away from General Damat and General Sibia. This article, when I read the article, it made sense to me and solidified my belief that journalists were being used by crime intelligence to plant stories in the media. Because, Chair, all of these things happened within a few days. The first incidents of spinning a story came at General Lazarus's house from FM 09. That was on the 20th. And the same evening, he spoke of staying away from General Damat and General Sibia. And on the 23rd, which was Sunday, the 23rd, it was just a matter of few days, Chair.
Yes.
Which, like I said, I strongly believe that this article was planted in a paper using journalists.
Yes.
Colonel Naidoo, are you aware of any other instances where crime intelligence have used journalists to further their agenda?
Yes, Chair. I have knowledge of 3 instances where journalists were either paid or used by crime intelligence. One is, Chair, this was early or rather late 2009, 2010, I can't be sure. General Mbluli told me that he's meeting with a journalist. Basically, the essence of the conversation that I had was this journalist had information on crime intelligence that would have been detrimental had it been published.
Yes.
He needed, I think it was 20 or 25,000 rand. It was basically he had to pay this journalist off.
Yes.
He didn't give me the name of the journalist nor the publication that journalist worked for. I eventually got to General Lazarus. I explained to him the conversation that I had with General Mluli and that he needed the cash. I filled in an advance form for the amount of, it was either 20 or 25,000, I can't be sure. When I got to General Lazarus for his signature for approval, he said that I should not take the advance. I don't know what was his reason, didn't give me any reasons, but he just said that I shouldn't take the advance on my name. FM 08 was at his office at that moment. He asked, this is now General Lazarus, asked FM 08 to take the advance on his name, which he did. He subsequently secured the cash, handed over to me, the cash, and I subsequently handed it over to General Mluli. I'm not sure where he was. He was either at his office or I met him at OR Tambo International Airport. I can't be sure, but I did. What I am sure is that I did eventually handed General Mluli the cash that I had received from FM 08. Chair, I'm not sure how this particular advance was reconciled, and I didn't hear of this incident again, neither from FM 08 or from General Mluli. That was the first instance. The second instance is I was in General Lazarus's office. I can't remember the time period, Chair.
Do you know whether it would have still been around the end of 2011?
Chair, I can't be
remember.
I can't be certain, Chair.
Okay.
I don't want to speculate as well.
Yeah.
General Lazarus was in his office. FM 09 was also present. They were having a conversation. I'm not sure what it was about, but they seemed to be unsettled. FM 09 then said to General Lazarus, in my presence while I was there, this is now General Lazarus's office, Chair. He said that Marshall is waiting, or rather Marshall needs an answer as a journalist is waiting. So
And who was Marshall?
Chair, previously FM 09 had told me that Marshall is actually ex-crime intelligence head General Mulange Impeko.
Yes.
He said that Marshall is waiting, or rather Marshall is, this is not the exact words, Chair, but the essence of that conversation was that Marshall needs an answer because the journalists are waiting, or journalist is waiting. That's what I picked up from that conversation. And General Lazarus said pay. That was the second instance.
Did you get to know how much was to be paid on that occasion?
No, Chair. There was no figure mentioned. He just said pay.
Okay.
Chair, the third instance of journalists either being paid or having some connection with crime intelligence. I know of a female journalist by the name of Ranjani Munsambi. I think she is a current Sunday Times journalist. Chair, in this instance, I have more detail because I was personally involved. If I can just have a few moments to explain.
Okay.
Chair, during 2008, I was called by Assistant Commissioner Impeko. Chair, I'm just using the ranks that they used at that stage. This was 2008.
Okay.
I was called by Commissioner Impeko to his office. And I must make mention at that stage, Commissioner Impeko was the head of crime intelligence. He was a divisional commissioner.
Yes.
He called me to his office. He said he has this contact. Her name is Jenny. He gave me her cell phone number. and that she's having problems with her vehicle, and that I must make contact with her and see how we can help her. Chair, I left his office, and I subsequently went to General Lazarus' office and explained to him that what was required of me. At that stage, I'm not sure who this person was. I didn't meet her previously. I don't know who she was. She was just mentioned as Jenny. At that stage, I can't recall if General Lazarus explained to me who this person was, but I can confirm that it was indeed Ranjani Munsami that I met.
Yes.
Chair, I met her on 3 occasions, probably 2 or 3 occasions.
Was that after the first meeting you had with her? Was it after you had called her on the number that Mr. Mpejo had given to you?
Chair, I contacted her to make arrangements to meet with her to collect a vehicle so that we can have it repaired.
Yes, but I just want to confirm whether you used the number that Mr. Mpejo had given to you.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay.
That's correct. I'm not sure, when making the arrangements to pick up a vehicle, I'm not sure if I introduced myself to her on the phone or when I met her first and explained to her who I was. But subsequently, or rather, before contacting her, I asked General Lazarus how we're going to fix this vehicle, or who we're going to send it to. He told me that I should pick up the vehicle from this individual and take it to New World Motors. Chair, New World Motors is a supplier or service provider to Company X regarding they do repairs to vehicles, servicing, etc., tires and all of that stuff, vehicle-related matters.
When you refer to Company X, are you referring to the same company to which Colonel Rohl also referred as Company X?
That is indeed correct, Chair.
Yes, but let's just go back a little bit. You had a discussion with Mr. Mpejo, and he told you about this person that he said had a problem with her car. But you say then thereafter you went to General Lazarus. Did you find that General Lazarus was aware of the issue?
I'm not too sure, but he wasn't surprised that I mentioned this individual. Like I said, at that stage, I'm not sure if he mentioned or told me who she was. I'm not sure, but he wasn't surprised.
Was it clear from what Mr. Mpejo told you what you were supposed to do, what he expected you to do?
Chair, he didn't give me a specific instruction, but he said this person was having problems with her vehicle and that I must make contact with her and see how we can help her or sort out the problems. Yes. This is now not the exact conversation I had with him, but that's what I can recall, Chair.
The essence of it.
Yes, Chair.
Would that kind of request, in the vague terms in which it was, would it have been normal to receive that kind of request in those kinds of vague terms from people high up in crime intelligence? I'm asking that because you don't seem to have asked who is this person, why should we help her or anything like that.
Chair, also remember the environment of crime intelligence. It's not your normal environment, normal police system.
Yes.
So it wasn't anything out of the ordinary for me at that stage.
Okay. Yes, okay. And then you went to General Lazarus, but he seemed to, did he give you more details of what you were supposed to do?
Not General Lazarus as such, because he didn't. Commissioner Peck also was very vague at that stage. He didn't give me any specific, what specifically that I had to do, but except there was something wrong with the vehicle and we needed to attend to it.
Okay, all right. And then what happened after your discussion with General Lazarus?
He told me that we should, or rather I should take the vehicle to New World Motors. Like I explained, it's New World Motors does servicing of repairs, vehicle-related matters. It's a supplier to to Company X or service provider to Company X.
Yes.
I eventually met with, Chair, I'm not sure how you pronounce the name. It's surname, it's Munisami or Munsami, I'm not too sure, but
Yes.
it's something to that effect.
Yes.
I met
the
her.
same person that Mr. Mpejo had asked you to help.
And that's correct, Chair.
Yes, okay.
Chair, I met her we made arrangements to meet at the engine garage. I'm not going to say where because it's very close to our house.
Okay.
I met Ms. Munsami on 2 or 3 occasions. I would phone her. Well, okay, I'm jumping the gun a bit, Chair. Let me just say how we met the first time. I made arrangements, I contacted her, I made arrangements to meet her. We met at the engine garage, which is not far from our house. It's either explained to her who I was over the phone or when I met her. That would have been obvious because she would not have given me a car. So she knew who I was at that stage when I met her, physically met her.
And you can't remember whether this was in 2008. You said, yeah.
I'm probably 2008, Chair.
Yes, okay, all
Probably
right.
thereabout. Yeah.
You can't remember the month and so on.
Chair, if the documents are shown to me, because there was an invoice put in for this car for payment,
Yes.
I can confirm that. The date.
Okay, all right. Yes, continue. And what was the discussion you had with her on the first occasion that you met? The two
Chair,
of you met.
if I can remember correctly, there wasn't much talk. I introduced myself and I told her that I was sent by Commissioner Peko and that we needed to sort this car out. She handed over the keys, and I subsequently took the car to New World Motors. Chair, like I said, I met this individual on 3 occasions. I can't remember the logistics of getting there and all of that. It's not very clear how I got there and how she got to where she needed to be. But what I can confirm is that I did take the vehicle from her.
So you took her vehicle and you took it to, did you say New World Motors?
That's correct, Chair, on the instruction of General Lazarus.
Yes, and did she go with you in the car when you took the car to New World Motors?
No, Chair, no.
Yes.
I took the car off her.
Yeah. Do you know how she was going to travel from there, from where you met to back to wherever she wanted to go? Was there somebody else in another car or what?
Chair, like I said, I'm not sure about the logistics of the whole thing. It's not very clear to me. I can't recall.
Okay. But you took her car to New World Motors.
That's correct, Chair.
And was the idea that whatever was wrong with it was going to be fixed at New World Motors?
That's correct, Chair.
Did you get to understand what was wrong with the car?
Chair, I'm not sure. I'm not too sure. But what I can confirm is that the tires on that specific vehicle was replaced with new tires.
Yes.
It was serviced. I think the radio was faulty. I'm not sure if it was fixed or replaced. And I think the seat, one of the seats in the car, needed some attention.
Yes.
But what I can confirm is all of these. Okay, I'm jumping the gun again a bit.
When you brought the car to New World Motors, the information you gave them, was it on the basis that you would be the one who would pick it up once they had repaired it? Or were the arrangements such that she could come and pick it up once it was ready?
No, Chair. I would pick up the vehicle once it was
Yes.
ready and take
Yes.
it back to Ms. Munsami.
And the information that you gave them about the vehicle, did it include anything to say the vehicle was hers, giving them her name, or was it brought there on the basis that it was a car from crime intelligence?
No, Chair. There was none of the information was given to the service provider by myself.
Including her name?
No, Chair.
So it was simply written on the basis of your name?
That's correct, Chair.
Okay, all right, yes. Continue.
Chair,
Colonel Naidoo, what happened after the tires were replaced?
this was actually, Chair, if I can remember correctly, obviously I would have to tell the service provider, New World Motors, what repairs needed to be carried out. He needed to know. So I'm not sure, it would have probably come from Ms. Munsame. I can't recall, but there had to be some instruction as to what needed to be done on the vehicle. I can't recall that part.
Yes.
But what I can say is
I take it that whatever you told them would have been written down on their records.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay.
Chair, the vehicle, I think it was 1 or 2 weeks, and the vehicle was repaired probably about after a week. I got a call from the owner of New World Motors, Mr. Joe Marks, told me the vehicle is ready and that I should fetch it. I took it back to Ms. Munsami.
Well, when you brought the vehicle to New World Motors, what did you tell New World Motors as to who would be responsible for the payment for the repair of the motor vehicle?
Chair, there was none of that discussion that took place. New World Motors was a service provider or supplier to Company X.
So would the understanding between you and New World Motors when you brought the vehicle, would it have been that they would invoice Company X?
That's correct, Chair.
Okay. Continue.
Chair, I subsequently picked up the vehicle and handed it back to Ms. Munsami. It was probably a week or two later that I got a call from Commissioner Mpeko. He inquired from me as to why we did not put run-flat tires on that specific vehicle, referring to Ms. Munsami's vehicle.
What tires?
Run-flat tires.
Oh, yes,
I picked up the vehicle, made arrangements again to pick up the vehicle from Ms. Munsami, took it back to New World Motors. I had those specific tires fitted on and took it back to her.
So that was the same day thing?
Chair, I'm not sure. If it was
Okay.
done on the same day. It's probably a day or two. I can't recall.
Okay, all
But
right.
what I can confirm was the tires were replaced.
Do you
Those
remember?
specific-
Do you remember what type of car it was?
Chair, it was a silver BMW, a convertible. I'm not sure. It was a silver BMW
Yes.
convertible.
Okay. Yes. So you took it back to her. So that was your third meeting with her.
Second meeting, Chair.
Well, wasn't the second meeting when you took it back for the first time?
Oh,
Before
yes,
you
yes,
took it,
yes.
Yeah, so
You're
this
correct.
was the third meeting?
Indeed, correct.
Okay. Was there any discussion of any consequence between yourself and her when you returned the car for the first time and when you returned the car for the second time?
Chair, you're referring to insofar as any payment for the car?
Whatever that was really of any importance that could be important for you to tell us.
Not that I can recall, Chair.
It was just handing over the car.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, continue.
Like I said, I'm not sure if I met her 2 or 3 times in this manner, but what I can recall, this will be now either the 3rd or the 4th time. I met her at her house, Chair, I remember this clearly because it was a Sunday. Commissioner Peko called me and he said that he mentioned her by, not by name, but he said this contact had a problem with the vehicle, it wasn't starting. So I had to go to her house.
I'm sorry. This is now a different occasion from the 3 meetings that you have told us, or is it one of the 3 meetings?
This is a different meeting, Chair.
Okay, which came after the first 3.
That's correct.
Okay, maybe let's take the tea adjournment now, and then when we come back, you can then continue.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Ms. Fensel, is that all right?
Yes, that's it.
Okay, we'll take the tea adjournment. It's 11:15. We'll resume at 11:30. We adjourn.
All rise.
Okay, let's continue. Ms. Wenzel and Colonel Naidoo.
Colonel Naidoo, can you hear us?
Yes.
Colonel Naidoo, you were dealing with the third occasion that you went...
I think the fourth occasion.
Yes, the fourth occasion.
Yes.
But I think the third occasion that you went to collect Mrs. Munsami's car from her.
Like I mentioned earlier, this now is either the third or the fourth
Yes.
occasion that I fetched the car.
Yes.
This
Well,
was on
maybe
a-
it's the fourth occasion you met with Miss Munsami, but I don't know whether it would be the third or whatever occasion you fetched the car, but as I understood your evidence, it certainly would be the fourth occasion on which you met her.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay, all right. Just refresh our memory again. How did this come about?
Chair, this was on a Sunday. Commissioner Mpeko phoned me. He said the contact referring to, I can't recall the exact conversation, but in essence it was the car was not starting, and he asked me to make arrangements to get it sorted out. I contacted Mr. Joe Marks of New World Motors, the supplier to Company X. We got the vehicle towed. Well, he towed the vehicle back to his workshop, and I'm not sure exactly what was wrong with the vehicle, Chair, but it wasn't starting. That was the whole purpose of getting it towed away.
Yes. And are you able to recall how far apart these incidents were the last time you took the car to Ms. Munsami after the issue of flat tires and this occasion when you met her for the fourth time?
Chair, the first 2 or 3 occasions, as I mentioned, was probably within a period of a few weeks.
Yes.
The last occasion, when I say the third or fourth one, was probably a week or a few weeks later. I can't really recall.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right. Continue. So you went to the house.
This was the only occasion that I've been to a house, Chair. Like I said, the previous occasions I would meet at a garage near a house. This was on one occasion, and the last one that I went to a house. The vehicle was eventually towed away. Like I said, I'm not sure exactly what was wrong, but it was eventually fixed.
Did you find her in the house?
Yes, Chair.
Okay.
I remember going inside a house, I think, to fetch the key.
Yes. So the car, you made arrangements for the car to be towed to Noel's.
Pardon me, Chair, I didn't hear the last part.
Did you make arrangements for her car to be taken to or towed to Noel's?
New World Motors,
New
Chair.
World or New World
New
Motors.
World Motors, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. You made arrangements for it to be towed to New World Motors.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay.
Chair, that was when I returned the vehicle after it being repaired or fixed. That was the last time I met Ms. Munsami. Well, at least as far as the car goes. I met her once subsequent to that, which I will explain later. But coming back to the vehicle itself, Chair, the amount of 40,000 Rand was paid from the Secret Service account for the repairs to this vehicle. Initially, I was going to put in a claim for the repairs, and General Lazarus said that I should not. Instead, Colonel Barnard put in a claim. This was now for for the tires.
For all the work done
All the
by
work, including the run flat tires, the
New World Motors.
initial repairs. That's indeed correct, Chair.
Yes.
The vehicle, the claim was put in by Colonel Barnard. I From what I can recall, it was 40,000 then, but I can confirm when I see or if I'm shown the documents.
Such a claim would have been put in by Colonel Barnard on what basis? What would have been written in the claim to legitimize it or to make it look like it was legitimate?
Chair, like I said, this is not your normal police system. It's very broad. This was a private vehicle, so it would not have been posted against any crime intelligence vehicle, SR vehicle, if you can call it. It would have been probably, motivation would have been probably for a contact person or some to that extent.
Did you ever see the actual claim?
I can't recall, Chair.
Whether you saw it?
I can't recall.
So you're not sure what would have been written on the claim documents?
No, Chair.
Okay, all right. But you say the amount was, as far as you can recall, around 40,000 rand?
That's correct, Chair.
Okay.
I remember the amount, I think, because like I mentioned earlier, I was the person who was putting the claim initially. So I would have seen the documents, and subsequently Colonel Barnard put in the claim. So I probably would have seen the documents.
Was there any particular reason why General Lazarus said you should not be the one putting in the claim?
He didn't say, Chair. He didn't say.
Yes, okay, all right.
Thank you, Colonel Naidoo. Colonel Naidoo, after you were placed in witness protection, did you provide the Hawks with any affidavits?
That's indeed correct. On the 25th of October 2011, I deposed an affidavit to Lieutenant Colonel Pete Fullion from the Hawks. That was my first affidavit, one of many. I think in total, I deposed to 11 in all over a period of time.
And if you have regard to Annexure DGN 13, there is an affidavit at page 124, which runs to 140. Is that this what you call the blanket affidavit that you deposed to?
That is correct.
I'm sorry, that's the affidavit starting at page 124.
Yes.
Yes, so that was the affidavit deposed to by you on the 24th of October 2011, is that right?
That's correct, Chair. 25th, Chair. 25th.
25?
Yes.
Yes, that appears at page 140. I see that no name is given on page 124, which is the first page of the affidavit, as to who the person is who is deposing to the affidavit. That was done deliberately, is that right?
That's correct, Chair.
Yes, but it is your affidavit.
Indeed.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Colonel Naidoo, how long have you been in witness protection?
Chair, the next month, the 21st of October, will be 8 years.
And in those 8 years, have you been called to testify in any criminal proceedings against any of the people you've implicated?
No.
Have you been told why that is so? Namely, why such a long time has lapsed without you being called to testify in any criminal proceedings relating to the people you implicated in your statements to the Hawks?
Chair, I have had numerous consultations over a period of time with Colonel Rohl, sir, and at times he had expressed his frustrations regarding certain documentations that were not forthcoming.
Yes.
But outside of that, I can't say.
Yes. Yeah, did he say that the delay was caused by the fact that there were certain documents that required to be declassified, but were not being declassified?
Indeed.
Yes, okay.
Colonel Naidoo, did you testify at disciplinary proceedings against General Lazarus?
That's correct, Chair. In 2013, I appeared on behalf of the SAPS as a witness in these proceedings.
Well, Ms. Wenzel, I kind of did have some understanding why you started with the circumstances surrounding Colonel Naidoo's being placed on the witness protection program, and not starting with the incidents which happened before that happened.
Yes.
I think that's where you should go before the disciplinary hearing, because I think the disciplinary hearing would have happened long after those incidents have happened.
Yes, it is true, Chair. The only reason to do this is to put in context before we hear the incidences as to why it was that Colonel Naidoo decided to come clean, as it were. And I think if the public could understand...
But he comes clean after knowing certain incidents, certain events.
Yes. No, Chair, I'm in your hands. I'm perfectly
so
happy to deal with that.
It's
at a
much more
different stage.
logical if we...
Yes.
Actually, it might have been better even to start with those events, those incidents.
Yes.
And follow logically up to the time he went on to the witness protection. But I kind of condoned your starting with the circumstances surrounding
Yes.
the witness protection, but we should start with the events.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll do that now, Chair. Before, Colonel Naidoo, we start with the events, could you tell the Chair what your history has been in the South African Police Services?
Chair, I joined the police in 2002 as a clerk and placed within the Division Crime Intelligence. That same year, November, I was transferred to KZN, Crime Intelligence Gathering. I was placed in the provincial office, also as a clerk. I think it was 2004. I applied for a transfer back to Crime Intelligence National Head Office. There I was placed in one of the operational teams. This was in 2004, Crime Intelligence Gathering, the National Head Office.
And who did you work under?
At that stage, it was Colonel Malaza, V.S. Malaza.
And what were your duties?
It was administrative duties, but in a covert environment, because this was, like I mentioned, it was an operational team. All the members working at this office were undercover intelligence operatives. A decision was taken by the commander that none of the operatives should go to our head office. I'm referring to the Crime Intelligence Head Office. So I was the person delegated to take care of all of these administrative duties at the Crime Intelligence Head Office. In 2006, I was promoted, still within Crime Intelligence. I was promoted to the rank of Warrant Officer. Here I was an undercover intelligence operative. This was probably for about a year and a half. For a brief period, I was under the direct command of Colonel Mani Victor. In 2010, or rather before that, in around 2007, I was transferred to the Secret Service account. I reported to Colonel Barnard, who in turn reported to General Lazarus. In 2010, I was promoted to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. That was within the 250 covert posts within crime intelligence. And I was placed within the facility management, and I occupied that post until the 21st of October 2011, until I was temporarily transferred into the witness protection program. That's very briefly my employment history.
What is your status at crime intelligence as we speak, as you understand it? You went into the witness protection program at a time when you were employed at crime intelligence. Are you still employed by them, or is the position that having been in the witness program for so long, you are no longer employed by them?
Chair, just to give you some insight, as far as I know, I am still a member of crime intelligence. I still hold that rank. My transfer was temporary into the witness protection program.
Yes.
I still receive a salary from the police.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And Colonel Naidoo, could you explain to the chair how you understood the Secret Service account worked and what the procedure was to obtain funding from the Secret Service account?
Chair, in essence, in a short summary, it's a covert fund, Chair. It's a fund that funds are received from National Treasury, and it is allocated to the police, more especially crime intelligence. It is utilized by crime intelligence to pay for goods and services, purchases of assets, equipment, vehicles, etc., required for undercover operations.
So is it basically for most, if not all, the operational needs of crime intelligence?
That's correct, Chair.
Okay, all right.
And Colonel Naidoo, what procedures were in place in order to obtain funding, whether it be to purchase equipment or for an undercover operation or to pay an informer? What procedure would have to be followed?
Chair, I think I'm not going to go too much into the detail because it is a covert environment, so I don't want to go too much into the detail, but I'll just use a very simple example.
Yes.
Because it's a general thing. I'm going to use myself as an example. If I needed money for petrol for my vehicle, which is a state vehicle, I would have to get an advance form, fill in an advance form, get it signed by my commander, take it to the cash office, advance office as they call it. That will then be captured on their system as an outstanding advance against my name. Those funds would then subsequently be handed over to me, which I have to sign for as receiving those funds. The monies would then be utilized for that specific purpose, in this case being petrol. At the end and obviously receipts will have to be kept for purchases of petrol. At the end of the month, we would have to compile a claim. So it's just very simple. If there was an overspend, meaning if there was more than 2,000 rand spent in this particular month, once it's been captured on the system, that money will be reimbursed to me. If there is underspent, it will reflect an amount owing against my name, which I'll have to pay back. So that's just using one example.
Yes.
But by and large, this is how the system worked. And this is now the one leg I speak of, where cash was used. I go to the other leg, where Company X was in place, this was to pay for goods and services rendered to crime intelligence without exposing who the real recipients of these assets were. So that's by and large how crime intelligence works. That's at least how I understand it to be.
Yes, I just want to emphasize that you were right to be cautious about about revealing how certain things work. And in this regard, I do ask you to be quite alert, because you are familiar with the environment and with what is not supposed to be generally revealed. From time to time, both Ms. Wenzel and I might ask you questions that might require you to reveal something that should not be revealed publicly. But when we do that, we wouldn't be aware necessarily that it's something that's not required to be revealed, but you would know, and you must just feel free to alert us to say that that is something that you would prefer not to reveal. All right.
Thank you, Chair.
Colonel Naidoo, did you hear me?
Chair, sorry, I think there is a problem
With the sound?
Yes, there is a problem. I'm not sure.
Do you know whether it's from your side?
I can't hear you very clearly,
You
Chair.
can't hear me?
No. At this moment I can, but the previous 2 minutes was a bit vague.
Let me try and repeat what I said and see whether you will hear me.
Okay.
And if the problem arises again, we might just need to adjourn for the technicians to attend to it.
Thank you.
I was saying that in response to the question that Ms. Wenzel put to you about how the Secret Services account operates, you did mention that because it relates to covert operations, you didn't want to reveal much, but you used your own example.
That's correct, Chair.
So I was saying Ms. Wenzel and I may from time to time ask you questions that you might think require you to reveal something that should not be revealed publicly. And when that happens, it would not be deliberate on our part, but it might just be because we are not used to that crime intelligence environment. But because you are used to it, feel free to indicate that the answer that you would be required to give would reveal information that should not be revealed publicly. You understand?
I will do so, Chair.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Let's continue.
Thank you, Colonel Naidoo. How did you become acquainted with General Lazarus?
Chair, General Lazarus, we actually played volleyball together in the same league. I think it was in the 90s. This was in Tongat. That's the town that we lived in at that stage.
That's in KZN.
That's correct, Chair.
Yes.
General Lazarus we also related by family, Chair. His wife is my mother's cousin.
Yes.
And how did you come to be employed at Crime Intelligence?
Around about 2002, Chair, I was temporary in Gauteng. I was living with my sister at that stage. I was unemployed. General Lazarus was aware of my situation, and I'm not sure how it came about, but he actually drew up a CV for me, and I was subsequently placed or employed within Crime Intelligence in 2002. I think it was June 21st, thereabout.
And in what position were you employed?
I was a clerk.
And who was the head of Crime Intelligence at that time, if you are able to remember?
It was Assistant Commissioner Raymond Lala.
Yes, okay, continue.
What happened after that, after your appointment to Crime Intelligence?
Well, Ms. Wenzel, which period do you speak of?
I'm speaking of...
2002, after you had been
Yes.
appointed to Crime Intelligence. She's asking what happened after you started at Crime Intelligence.
In terms of my employment history,
I can understand why your confusion, Colonel Lazarus.
You might wish to direct.
Yes, during 2006, 2007,
yes,
were you involved with renovations to General Lazarus's home?
that is indeed correct.
And
What was that question again?
was he involved in renovations to General Lazarus's home?
Okay, all right.
Could you
Where are we on? What page are we on in his statement now?
Page 5, Chair.
Okay. Yes, continue. He has given an affirmative answer. He was involved in renovations in General Lazarus' house. How did that come about, Colonel Naidoo?
Chair, at that stage, General Lazarus lives, I think it's about 4 or 5 k's away from my house. And I generally used to pick him up in the morning and drop him off at his office. This was generally what happened.
Yes.
Around about 2006, 2007, he began renovations at his home. I was appointed a project manager, and I say that appointed a project manager, I say that in inverted commas, because I couldn't have been the project manager. I was employed by CI.
Yes.
I was basically there to oversee the renovations at his private home.
Who did he have carry out the renovations in his house?
Chair, he had private builders that were undertaking or carrying out the renovations. I was just basically there to oversee the project, because on numerous times the builders would run short of building material, equipment. I had to make sure that they had all of these things all the time.
I didn't hear who you said was carrying out the renovations. Do you want to repeat that?
Chair, it was private individuals. I don't know.
A private contractor?
Yes.
Oh, okay, all right. Yes.
And
So you were asked, excuse me, he asked you to be, in inverted commas, a project manager for the renovations.
Chair, it wasn't a direct instruction. It just happened over time. And I can say this happened over a period of at least over a year, when the renovations were eventually finished and completed.
Yes, but I understood you to be saying he appointed you to be the project manager in inverted commas. Is the position that he did ask you to be the project manager in inverted commas, or is the position that he kept on asking you to be involved in one way or another with the renovations until you thought, for all intents and purposes, you were the project manager?
Indeed, Chair, it wasn't a direct instruction that you are now the project manager. This happened over time, because eventually, like I'll testify to later, it was almost on a daily basis that like I said, he traveled with me. Often I had to drop him off at his own office and come back to the site, because the builders would need one or other equipment, building supplies that they would run short of. So this happened quite often, Chair, over the period of the year.
Okay, continue, Ms.
And-
Benson.
at that stage, who did you report to for your crime intelligence work?
Chair, if I remember correctly, I was, in 2006, I was promoted to the rank of warrant officer, like I testified to, as an undercover intelligence operative. I think it was Colonel Mani Victor that we reported to. Chair, at that stage, overseeing the project at the renovations to General Lazarus's home, it was affecting my ability to do my own job at Colonel Mani Victor's home, office, sorry, pardon me. So the arrangements were made, or I expressed my concern to General Lazarus that I'm getting pressure at my own office because I don't have the time to conduct the normal police work that I should be doing. So he said that he would speak to General Els. I must make mention that General Els was a national head of crime intelligence gathering at that stage. He would have been the person that Colonel Mani Victor reported to. Arrangements or discussions between General Lazarus and General Els, well, at least this is what General Lazarus informed me, that he will speak to General Els for me to be transferred to the Secret Service account. And that is when I was transferred to the Secret Service account, and I reported to Colonel Barnard. Colonel Barnard reported to General Lazarus. He was basically his boss. So this was actually, new arrangements was made to facilitate me still overseeing the project at the renovations to General Lazarus's house without being pressured at work with the normal duties that I should be performing. So there was no pressure for me at work. So that basically, in essence, gave me the time to continue to oversee the project at General Lazarus's home.
And at that stage, who was the chief financial officer for the Secret Service account?
It was General Lazarus.
And what was Colonel Barnard's function to whom you reported?
Colonel Barnard was the head of the procurement section, which was a leg that fell within the Secret Service account.
And in that position, whilst you were not supervising the construction at General Lazarus's house, what would your duties have been?
At that stage, well, at least on paper, I was supposed to be managing the vehicle fleet of crime intelligence.
Now, how did you come to know General Mhluli?
Chair, General Mhluli was appointed, if I can remember correctly, in 2009. I think it was 1st July. When he was first appointed, he had to, there was a lot of assets that he needed in place for him to get going as the divisional commissioner, namely cars, cell phones, a few other items.
Before you talk about General Mhluli in 2009, have you exhausted what you need to tell me about in regard to the renovations at General Lazarus's house? Or was there anything important in regard to your role there, other than that you were using time that was meant for you to work at crime intelligence to actually oversee his private project in his house? Who was going to pay for those renovations and so on?
Chair, it was him. General Lazarus undertook the financial. If there was anything to be paid, he would give me money in terms of cash or checks to pay for the various items that needed to be purchased.
Where did he get that money from? Was that money from his pocket? Was that money from the Secret Services account? What was the position?
Chair, at that stage, this was in 2006. I can't say for certain that he used funds from the Secret Service account.
Yes. So he gave you money, and you didn't know whether it was his money or not his money, but you had no reason to think it might not be his money
Chair,
at that stage.
on numerous occasions, he gave me cash, which he had in his bag that he carried to work.
Yes.
I can't say for certain that it was his own money or it was
Yes.
money from the Secret Service account.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Could you now turn, Colonel Naidoo, to explain how you first came to know General Mdluli?
Like I mentioned earlier, General Mdluli was appointed, in 2009, the 1st of July. General Lazarus was the CFO at that stage of the Secret Service account. General Mdluli liaised often with General Lazarus in order to get assets, etc., that he needed to get going in his post. Seeing that I had a close relationship with General Lazarus, I would be the one or the person that General Lazarus would ask for me to help in the facilitation of getting these assets to General Mdluli.
When General Mdluli was appointed to crime intelligence, he was appointed to the position of head of crime intelligence. He didn't occupy a lower position in crime intelligence before that.
Chair, General Mdluli wasn't in crime intelligence when he was appointed, so I'm not sure. He was in the police. I speak under correction.
Yes,
But
okay.
he wasn't in the structure of crime intelligence. at
Okay,
that
all right,
stage.
yes. I think he was in SAPS.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah, okay. Continue, Ms. Svensson.
And Colonel Naidoo, who occupied the position General Mdluli took up before he was there, before he was appointed?
It was Assistant Commissioner Peko.
And after the appointment of General Mdluli, what happened with regard to General Lazarus's position?
Not so much in terms of his position, but if I can recall correctly, it was not long after that, I'm speaking of July 2009, if I can recall correctly, General Mdluli informed General Lazarus that he was going to be transferred out of the Secret Service account. Not out of crime intelligence, but another component within crime intelligence.
And what was General Lazarus's reaction to that?
He resisted the transfer. This is at least what I picked up from the conversations that I had with him. And this is what I feel. It's not fact. I feel the resistance came because if he was indeed transferred out of the Secret Service account, the person coming in to take charge would have access to all of the documents, the systems in place at the Secret Service account, and I think that person would have been exposed to all of the corruption that is taking place at that unit.
Colonel Naidoo, was General Lazarus in fact transferred?
He was never transferred from that position.
And what transpired, do you believe, to ensure that he was not transferred?
Chair, I'm going to read point 22 from page 006, and I will explain.
That's paragraph 22 of your affidavit before this commission at page 6.
Indeed.
Yes. Mhm.
The heading is the involvement of General Becky Taylor, and it's point 22. At the time that General Mdluli was appointed, General Becky Taylor was the National Commissioner of the SAPS, and it was rumored that whilst he had been a member of the Executive Committee of Transport in KwaZulu-Natal, he had been involved in the awarding of large tenders to a local businessman, Mr. Panganathan, also known as Tumi Marimutu. Mr. Marimutu was a former police officer who I am informed was convicted of drug dealing, However, as far as I'm aware, he never served any custodial sentence for this conviction, and as a result of the tenders he obtained through Mr. Becky Taylor, he became very wealthy or extreme wealthy. That is as per my statement, Chair, and if I can just explain what I've read out. What's in my statement is what I picked up from having conversations with various of my colleagues at Crime Intelligence. I can't say for sure that it happened on a specific day and who I spoke to. This was just what I picked up from general conversation over a period of time from a number of my colleagues.
Yes, so you have no knowledge whether what you had with regard to General Bekele was true or not.
No, Chair. I can't say what's in my statement is actually true. This is what I heard. If it is indeed true, I can't say for sure.
Yes.
Colonel Naidoo, was General Lazarus aware of the alleged association between General Chele and Mr. Marimutu?
Yes, he was. Like I said, Chair, earlier, General Lazarus was informed by General Mluli that he was going to be transferred out of the Secret Service account. Obviously, there was resistance. He was aware of this relationship between Mr. Marimutu and Becky Taylor. He subsequently made arrangements for a meeting to be held between himself and Becky Taylor, as Mr. Marimutu would be the go-to guy, so to speak, or the person who would facilitate this meeting.
And why do you believe that he wanted to have a meeting with General Chele?
The initial meeting, I can't recall exactly, but there were several meetings held between General Chele and General Lazarus, as he would inform me that he's going to meet General Becky Taylor.
And were you ever present at any of these meetings?
Chair, I was present, not actually at the meeting. I can't recall the exact year. It probably would have been 2009, or rather not 2009, early 2009, 2010. It was at Mr. Marimutu's house in Amslanga Rocks in Durban. We were there already. When I say we, it was myself, General Lazarus, and Mr. Marimutu. They were waiting, pardon me, Chair.
What was the purpose of your visit to Mr. Marimutu's house in Umhlanga?
Chair, General Lazarus was waiting for General Becky Taylor. They were having a meeting. We were probably there around about 2 hours or so. If I can remember correctly, we haven't even had some tea or some beverages, I'm not too sure. And closer to the time that General Becky Taylor arrived, General Lazarus told me that it was not easy to organize a meeting with Becky Taylor. And he made a call. This was in my presence, Chair. He made a call to another CI member, which is FM08, to organize cash, which I assumed was to be paid over to General Taylor when he eventually arrived for the meeting.
Ms. Wenzel, you can see that in paragraph 24, there is no reference to FM08.
Yes.
He has just said that person was FM08.
Yes.
Will you make sure that that's replaced with a page that has got that?
Yes.
And check whether there are any other gaps in the affidavit.
Yes. We did discover gaps, and it's being attended to now, Chair, and that will be replaced.
Okay. Was General Lazarus within your hearing when he spoke to FM08 on that occasion on the phone?
Chair, I don't recall hearing the whole conversation, but I do know that he phoned FM08 to organize cash. If I recall correctly, he told me that he's going to phone FM08. But subsequent to that, subsequent to his...
Before subsequent to that, how did you know that the call was about organizing cash? Did he tell you that?
Chair, I assumed that it was to organize cash based on what he had said a minute earlier. It was not easy to organize a meeting with Bekitele.
Yes, but simply because it was not easy to, simply because he said that it was not easy to organize a meeting with General Bekitele shouldn't necessarily have anything to do with his call being a call to organize cash. So what makes you associate the call with cash?
I can't really say, Chair, but the next paragraph of my statement will add some insight as to why I think it was so.
Yes, okay.
Chair, like I mentioned, I was also present while this phone call took place. General Lazarus was not aware that I had cash with me. It was 40,000 rand, which I had taken from our head office. When I say our, it's CI head office in Pretoria. I can't remember exactly what the advance was for. At this stage, I cannot recall. I informed General Lazarus that I had the cash, and I subsequently handed him the money.
Yes, there's a gap there. He didn't tell you that he was making a call to get cash from FM08. He said that organizing a meeting with General Bekitele was not easy.
That's correct, Chair.
Then he made a call to FM08.
Indeed.
You did not hear their conversation on the phone.
No, Chair.
And you assumed that the call was about cash.
That is indeed correct, Chair,
Yes.
as to what I heard previously, what he had said to me.
Yes, and you must tell me if I'm wrong now. As I understand it, you can't say why you assumed the call to have been about cash. Am I right?
It was an assumption, Chair. I can't say for sure.
And you can't tell me why you made that assumption.
No, Chair.
Is that right?
Indeed.
And then the next thing you say in paragraph 25, at the time, General Lazarus was unaware that I had 40,000 rand in cash with me, which I had taken from head office for some other purpose, which I cannot recall. You then say, I then informed General Lazarus about the cash and handed him the money. There is a gap in the story there. How does it come about that you give him cash when there's been no discussion about cash? He has not told you he needs money.
Yes, Chair, I'm with you. There is a gap, but this is what I recall from that particular incident, Chair.
Yes, but I would have expected you to recall much more than just that, because it seems to me the context, if there was discussion of cash, may well have been a bribery or corruption, and I would have thought that you would have remembered how the issue of cash came about.
Chair, unfortunately, at this stage, I cannot recall what's in my statement as is. I recall what's as is in my statement. I can't recall any other further details than what's in the statement.
Yes. Do you recall why you had that 40,000 rand cash with you? What purpose you wanted to use it for?
I'm not sure, Chair.
You can't remember.
I had many advances on my name for
Yes.
numerous purposes.
Yes.
At the time of being of my being admitted into witness protection in October 2011, I had almost 140 to 150,000 rand of outstanding advances against my name.
Yes. Okay. Anyway, excuse me. You told General Lazarus that you had 40,000 rand on you, and you handed it to him. Is that right?
That's correct, Chair.
Did he say why he wanted that money?
Chair, from what he said earlier, it was not easy to organize a meeting with Becky Taylor, and me subsequently handing him the cash. This was my belief that that money was intended to pay General Becky Taylor.
But this was all your assumptions. He didn't say that himself.
No, Chair, he didn't. It's an assumption, indeed.
Yeah, you will just have to be careful and in your evidence, because while one can accept a few assumptions, it's going to be difficult if there are going to be too many assumptions. So try and remember to the best of your ability. I know that we are talking many, many years later. I appreciate that. But it's important that I get as much in terms of facts as possible as you recall them. You understand that?
Indeed, Chair. I will.
You will do your best.
I will try my best as we go along now.
Yes.
But also, I will try and gather my thoughts.
Yes.
And if need be, I will put in a supplementary statement.
Yes. Okay. All right. No, that's fine. Ms. Wenzel, let's continue.
After you'd given General Lazarus the 40,000 cash that you had on you, what happened?
Chair, this was, like I mentioned, this was in Mr. Marimutu's home in Durban, Umhlanga Rocks. We were in one part of the house. When General Becky Taylor arrived, which I didn't see him arriving, but obviously General Lazarus told me he's going into a meeting with General Becky Taylor, and he doesn't want me to be part of that meeting, so I remained in that part of the house. The meeting with General Becky Taylor was held in another section of the house. Mr. Marimutu's house is quite vast.
Do you know whether you would still be able to take somebody to Mr. Marimutu's house?
Pardon me, Chair?
Do you know whether you would be able to take somebody to Mr. Marimutu's house?
To physically go there?
Yeah.
Yes, I will. I know where the house is.
You know where it is?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Then, after this meeting, did General Lazarus return all or any of the money back to you?
Chair, none of that money was returned to me, and an assumption again on my part that the money was handed over to General Becky Taylor.
Now, if we can just look at another thing, is that
Why didn't you ask General Lazarus, what are you going to do with this money? I had another purpose for it. Why do you need this money? I have it on me for another purpose.
Chair, at that stage, this was in 2000, probably 2009, 2010. Remember the time period, the account was already being abused by then already, Chair, while with large amounts of money was taken.
Yes.
So I didn't bother to ask him.
Yeah. Getting another amount was not going to be a problem from the account.
Not at all, Chair.
Yes. Okay.
There was often rolling, I think maybe just to give you some insight, Chair, on this,
Yes.
on this incident. And I speak for myself because this is what I did. On numerous occasions,
Yes.
I took advances, big amounts that I couldn't reconcile. So with General Lazarus's knowledge and his approval, because most of the time he signed my advances, I would
Yes.
take, say, just to give you a simple example, if 10 Rand was outstanding on my name and I couldn't pay back the 10 Rand, I would take another advance for 10 Rand and pay off the previous advance that was outstanding. So it's basically what is known as rolling advances, to pay off another advance.
Yes.
And this was done on numerous occasions by myself.
Yes. So, okay, all right. Thank you, Ms. Windsor.
Colonel Naidoo, to clarify, you say that before General Chele arrived, General Lazarus told you it's not easy to organize a meeting with Becky Chele. Who was it that organized the meeting?
That an assumption again would be Mr. Marimutu, because the meeting was held at his house. So he would have had knowledge of a meeting in his house.
Why
Yes,
then-
but the question is, who made this remark? Who said it was not, or rather, I'm sorry, I think I may be confusing both you and Ms. Wenzel. Okay, so I think the question was, who organized the meeting with General Bekele in Mr. Marimutu's house, and your answer is, you assume it was Mr. Marimutu.
An assumption again, yes, indeed, Chair.
Okay.
With having made that assumption, why did you assume that the money that you believe was requested or was needed was to pay General Chele and not Mr. Marimutu, who organized the meeting?
Chair, like I mentioned earlier, we were at Mr. Marimutu's house for quite some time, probably 1.5 hours or maybe 2. There was no attempt on General Lazarus' side or no attempt to contact FM 08 in that period while we waited for Mr. Bekele to arrive to organize cash. So there was ample time for him to I'm speaking about General Lazarus now, for him to phone FM 08 to make arrangements for the cash. It was only closer to the time that General Bekele arrived that this arrangement was made for cash. So an assumption again on my side, that is why I believe that the money was given to General Tele and not to Mr. Marimutu.
Would it be true to say that you don't know whether, when General Lazarus came out of the room where he had a meeting with General Tele, you don't know whether he came back with the money or not?
Chair, there was no money returned to me, so I assume the money was paid over to General Tele.
Yes, but he could have come back with the money in his own pocket.
It's a possibility, Chair, yes.
So you really don't know what happened to the money, other than that you gave it to him and he never gave it back to you.
That is correct, Chair.
Yes, okay.
Colonel Naidoo, was General Lazarus transferred from his position as CFO of the Secret Service account?
No, he was not.
Let me go back to the purpose of the meeting. Did you know what the actual purpose of the meeting was? Why General Lazarus wanted to meet with General Tele?
No, Chair. No reasons were given to me by General Lazarus, except to say that he was having a meeting with General Tele.
Did you and General Lazarus go all the way from Gauteng to KZN to meet with General Tele without you finding out what's the purpose and why should I come with you?
Chair, if I remember correctly, it wasn't a specific meeting where we flew down from Gauteng to KZN to meet with General Taylor. If I can remember correctly, we were in KwaZulu-Natal for a few days. I can't remember exactly why we were there, but it wasn't specifically to fly down for that meeting.
Okay.
And one of the days, while we in KZN,
Yes.
this meeting came up.
Okay, no, that's all right.
Thank you, Chair. Colonel Naidoo, could you now please tell the Chair about a private trip that was undertaken by General Mhluli and his wife to China?
Before that question, Colonel Naidoo, somehow in your evidence, there is an implied suggestion that the reason why General Lazarus was not transferred, as had been proposed by General Mhluli, was because he sought the support of General Cele to oppose the transfer. Is my reading of your evidence correct?
Indeed.
Is it correct that you don't actually have any basis for that implication or insinuation, other than that you know that General Lazarus approached General Cele and there was a meeting? Is that right, or is there something more on which you base that on?
That is correct, Chair, regarding this incident.
Yes. Did General Lazarus at any stage say to you or within your hearing that he was going to approach General Cele in order to prevent General Mhluli from transferring him?
Chair, this was like I said, this was not the initial meeting, Chair.
Yes.
The initial meeting with General Cele was for that specific purpose, so that he's not transferred. This was subsequent. This was one of the several meetings that he had that I was privy to, or rather not privy to, but I was in the room or in the same vicinity. So it's not. This
one is not connected with the transfer.
The incident that we speak of now is not connected to the transfer.
Okay.
That was the initial contact that was made with Bekitele for that specific purpose. It was basically to organize a meeting with General Bekitele. So this incident that I speak of is subsequent to that. It was one of several meetings prior to or subsequent to the first initial meeting.
Okay, let me try and understand this. As you understand it, General Lazarus had a number of meetings with General Cele, is that right?
Yes, that's correct, Chair.
How many of those did you attend?
It was this one that I testified to now, Chair.
Yes. Was it the only one?
That's correct.
Yes. And you don't know what the purpose of this one was, is that right?
No, Chair.
And you were excluded from the actual meeting when General Lazarus had a discussion with General Cele in another room at Mr. Marmutu's house, or another section of the room.
That is correct.
And was Mr. Marmutu part of that discussion between General Cele and General Lazarus?
I assume that he would have been, Chair.
You don't know?
No.
Was the meeting in another room other than the room in which you were at Mr. Marmutu's house, or was it in the same room but in a different section away from you?
It was in another room, Chair, not in the same room that I was in.
Yes. Okay. But for all intents and purposes, other than that you gave General Lazarus some money, 40,000 rand, which you assumed was going to be given to somebody, and I can't remember whether you said Mr. Marimutu or General Qele. Other than that, there is no particular significance in that meeting.
No, Chair.
And actually, if one doesn't know what the what the 40,000 rand was for, there is actually no significance to that meeting at all.
No, Chair.
Yes. Now, is there a meeting that you attended which involved General Lazarus and General Qele, which related to General Lazarus' possible transfer away from a secret service account?
No, Chair.
No. Okay. Any of the meetings that General Lazarus may have had with General Qele, you don't know if they are of any significance to you?
No, Chair.
Yes. Okay, Ms. Spencer.
Yes, Chair.
Just try and make sure that we go to those issues that are really of importance for our purposes.
Yes, I will, Chair. Colonel Naidoo, could you please now deal with the private trip that General Mdluli and his wife took to China?
Chair, if I remember correctly, this was around October, November 2009. It was just a few months after General Mdluli was appointed as his Crime Intelligence Divisional Commissioner. Prior to General Mdluli flying to China with his wife, General Lazarus told me, I remember a conversation that I had with him. He said to me that General Mdluli wants to take his wife to China, and we must see how we can help him. And Chair, if I can read from my statement, his exact words to me, and I say this is General Lazarus's words, that Dhanajaya wants to take his vrouw to China, and we must see how we can help him. This simply means Dhanajaya, referring to General Mdluli, wants to take his vrouw, which is his wife at that stage, was, I don't know her full name, I think it's Vusiwani, to China, and we must see how we can help him. The reference to we there, I assume, was General Lazarus and Colonel Barnard. General Lazarus then instructed me to make inquiries with regards to the air tickets. I think I went to Menland Park. It was a flight center where I made inquiries. Chair, before I go there, I think I'm jumping the gun a bit. I would have spoken either to General Lazarus or General Mdluli, because obviously to make bookings, I would have to get their ID numbers and their destination of travel. So it was either one of them who had given me this information.
Yes.
Once I had the information, like I said, I went to flight center. It was Menlo Park, or the mall there, I don't recall the name. I made provisional bookings for General Mdluli and his wife at that stage, Vusiwani Lily Mdluli. On the 3rd of November 2009, General Lazarus called me to his office. When I got there, Chair, he had an envelope with him. At that stage, I can't recall if he told me what was in the envelope or what the contents of the envelope was, or at a later stage. But what I can recall of the incident is that he told me, he gave me the envelope, which was on his desk, He said that I must take the envelope and keep it with me because he's going into another meeting with another Colonel Hein, if I remember correctly. I did so. I took the envelope, I put it in my bag, and I waited at the reception at his office, outside of his office. While I was waiting there, Colonel Barnard also came to the reception. His meeting with Colonel Hein, and I say his meeting, General Lazarus' meeting with Colonel Hein was probably a few minutes. It didn't take long. When Colonel Hein had finished with his meeting, he left, and General Lazarus called Colonel Barnard and myself into his office. General Lazarus informed me that there was 50,000 rand in the envelope. Like I said earlier, Chair, I'm not sure at that stage about the 50,000 or it was previously to Colonel Hein's meeting with him. But what I can say is that he indeed told me that there was 50,000 rand in the envelope. This, he said, they managed to get a loan from Mr. Jan Venter. Chair, Mr. Jan Venter is a dealer principal of Atlantis Motors, a company of which Crime Intelligence purchases their vehicles from.
Yes. This was a loan for what purpose and in whose favor?
Chair, this was what General Lazarus told me. They had managed to secure a loan from Mr. Jan Venter to purchase a ticket for General Mluli's wife for his tentative trip to China.
Yes. Continue, Ms. Wenzel.
What then transpired, Colonel Naidoo?
Chair, on that same day, and I speak of the 3rd of November.
I'm sorry, you took the envelope and there was 50,000 rand in the envelope.
Chair, I assumed that there was 50,000 rand envelope. I didn't open it and I didn't count the money.
Yes. Did you find out later that there was 50,000 rand?
Indeed, I did.
Okay.
Chair, on the same day, the 3rd of November, after speaking, or rather with a short meeting with Colonel Barnard and myself, and after handing over the 50,000 rand, which was in envelope, General Lazarus instructed me to take a further 50,000 rand advance from the cash office, advance office, on my name. This was to pay for General Mluli's ticket.
How much was that? He instructed you to take how much?
50,000 rand.
Yeah, from the Secret
Service
account.
account. That's correct, yeah.
Yes, okay.
I filled in the necessary documentation, and I think it was General Lazarus who approved it. I'm not certain. If the documents are showed to me, I can confirm. It was either General Lazarus or Colonel Barnard who approved that advance.
Yes.
I secured the funds, Chair, and in total I had with me 100,000 rand.
Yes, for both General Mluli and his wife.
The 50,000 rand loan from Mr. Jan Venter and the 50,000 rand that I took in advance on my name.
Yes.
General Lazarus then instructed me to go and pay for the two tickets, one for General Mluli and the one for his wife, his then wife.
Yes. Ms. Wenzel?
And did you actually purchase the tickets?
Yes, I did. If I remember correctly, the combined total for the two tickets was around 86,000 rand, thereabout.
Now, Chair, the copy of these tickets is very difficult to read because it's a scanned copy, and as I indicated, Chair, we will try and get better copies for you.
Yes, but on what page is it?
It's page 74. Colonel Naidoo, can you confirm, it's almost impossible to see, that these are the flight tickets that you purchased, the e-ticket receipts?
Chair, it's not very clear, but I
Yes.
do see my signature at the bottom, so I can confirm that these are the documents.
Okay.
And how did you feel about having the advance for 50,000 rand for General Mtluli's ticket in your name?
Maybe before that, Colonel Naidoo, I see that you say that you went to the flight center to make bookings, is that right?
The bookings were made, a few provisional bookings, Chair. That was a few days prior to the 3rd of November.
Yes, but you made them with the flight center.
That's correct.
Is that how you would normally make bookings if it was an official trip? Or did the crime intelligence have travel agents that it used for official trips?
Chair, from what I'm given to understand on the open account, they have service providers in place. You need to get approval and the necessary paperwork. With crime intelligence, they used a certain company that I've already testified to. I think it was Westworld Travel. We've never used Flight Center prior to this incident.
Is the position that your experience as at that time was that whenever bookings had to be made, flight bookings had to be made for official trips, they were made with a particular travel agent and not with Flight Center?
That is indeed correct, Chair.
Okay. Continue, Ms. Swenson.
Colonel, is it a convenient time to adjourn, or are you happy to?
Okay, let's adjourn. It's about 2 minutes to 1. Let's adjourn then. We'll adjourn and resume at 2 o'clock. We adjourn.
All rise.